Welcome to Talking Giants presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick, and we've got ourselves a mailbag pod talking about a 4-1 New York Giants team. It feels really good. There's a lot to hit on. We got some a little different type of questions this week than we did last week. Some more miscellaneous stuff. Justin, how are you feeling?
Hey, Bobby Skinner. Great to be chatting with you. The mailbag pods are some of my favorite shows that we do because we get a chance to look at the film, look at the stats, and then we come together and we talk about it. I like how especially the first two questions are a little bit more big picture questions, stuff that we usually don't talk about in season, but we're going to talk about it. I did a little bit of a kind of just like a reflecting moment before we recorded the show, and I wanted to look back on after week 5 last year. What were we talking about on our mailbag pod? Well, to give you a little bit of perspective on how far we've come in just around 365 days, it was the Rams game. It was the Rams game where we got absolutely blown out, and what we talked about on the Giants mailbag plus Rams cleanup was the futures of Daniel Jones and Joe Judge. We talked about if John Mara and Chris Mara, and if the Maras can turn around the organization, and we talked about the impact of losing Andrew Thomas to the IR for at least the next 3 games. So, give you a little bit of perspective on how far we've come in just a year. It's good to be a Giants fan.
It feels really good. It feels good to be the worst 4-1 team in NFL history, and I'm going to keep saying that line until it gets old, which is it's never going to get old for us. So we got a lot of things to get into in this podcast. First, this episode was brought to you by some special people. Matthew Bernardo. We got Keith the Giant. He's just Keith the Giant. He's a lot, I like him a lot more than a different Keith. Tom Cucciara. La Cucaracha. Drew Thornton reminds me of the Florida State guard. Was it Al Thornton? I can't remember. Michael Donaldson. Your brother Josh. How about you don't, hit the ball off the wall and then get out, dummy. Doug with the complicated username. I thought Doug complicated username was our friend of Giants Futures, but I guess it's not.
No.
For some reason, I thought that was like the same person with 3 accounts, but it's not.
No, it's Liam.
Yeah, I thought Doug was Liam. I don't know why. I just thought Doug was Liam.
Doug with a complicated username. I've said this before, but it's honestly like right now, it's Research Rick and him are like 2 of my favorite follows right now, and Research Rick has been for a long time.
Yeah, I just follow Doug, and sometimes I'm like, man, you tweeted that before I did. And I
get
wanted
pissed.
to tweet something like that.
I've been getting pissed.
Good follow. James Banbury, not Bradbury, Banbury Brian. Funny man. He's a funny man. Jersey Will. He's from North Dakota.
Think it's our Will?
No. Joe Lemon Jelly. Love us. I just had some lemons. And Michael Plotkin. He's plotting on his Giants victory. Justin, who are these people?
I heard a Thornton in there, so it's also Tyquan Thornton, who's that cornerback. Is he on the Patriots? Where is he?
Yes. He's a wide receiver, and he's on the Patriots.
He's on the Patriots. Hey, maybe could trade a wide receiver from the Patriots. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Who's that Keith you don't like?
He works for The Fan.
Oh, right. Patreon.com/TalkingGiants. That's where all these wonderful people went to become part of the TG Talking Giants Patreon family. You get to hang out with us while we record the shows live. Bobby Skinner sends you some stickers, magnets in the mail, and then twice a month you get a chance to win some shirts off the store. Patreon.com/TalkingGiants. Thanks to our patrons. Love you.
Take it away, Steve.
Mail time.
Mail time. The mail's here. Come on. Bye, guys. Here's the mail. It never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail. Mail!
Thanks, Steve from Blues Clues. Justin, let's get into the mail.
Just as I mentioned as possibly acquiring somebody from another team, Papa Bayer asked at Papa_Bayer, at one point, if any, does Joe Shane commit to this season and make some sort of splash trade at wide receiver or defensive back to help the team? I'm going to leave it at that.
With what's out there, to me, Justin, it would be an absolutely not. Unless you're trading like a day 3 pick for a guy that they like more than the team that's wanting to trade that guy. But when this is brought up, it's because Matt Rule is fired by the Panthers, and the Panthers are going to be looking to sell some pieces off because they don't have a lot of draft picks, and they they're going to restart. I kind of hate David Tepper, by the way, listening to his press conferences. Like, you suck. So DJ Moore is the name that I think a lot of people, we got a lot of questions about that, so I just put it in this. To me, absolutely not. This team still has major cap issues, and they want to gain draft assets, not give them away. It's like this team is not going to win a Super Bowl this year. Like, we should be happy with what they are, but you can't get off the course, and I don't think the Giants will. And you look at even that Bills team, that first year of Brandon Beane, they snuck into the playoffs, but they sold off a lot of parts that year, and they stayed true. And Tyrod Taylor took them to the playoffs, but they were still like, nah, we're looking to trade up from our picks. I think they had picks 21 and 22. So to me, it's an absolutely not. But I do think it's an interesting question because winning, like when you start winning, you want to do more winning.
I agree with you, especially as we're entering into what we think is an accelerated rebuild, but this team is still rebuilding because you have to look at the roster deficiencies that they have. But Bobby, the trade deadline is November 1st. We have 3 games before November 1st. We have the Ravens this weekend, the Jaguars, and the Seahawks. If you win 2 out of those 3 games, and then what's our record? Help me do the math. 6-2?
Yes.
If we're 6-2 heading into our bye, and the trade deadline is tomorrow. So we play the Seahawks in Seattle October 30th. So then there's the 31st, and then there's the 1st. So then you'll have that 2-day grace period. If we are 6-2, you're at least not thinking about it. And I'm not talking about DJ Moore. Like here's where I'm thinking. I'm thinking like a Nelson Aguilar type player for the Patriots. I mean, he's got a big contract. He has a big contract. Tough. Brandon Cooks from the Texans.
He's got a contract. I'm not going to screw up cap space, and especially for like Brandon Cooks is a good player, but I'm not trading with the way the Giants situation is. Really the only way I would do it is if the regime fully believed Daniel Jones was the franchise quarterback, which after these first 5 games and declining his option, we'll talk about Daniel Jones a little more. I don't think they're going to be fully convinced. Like, maybe they're very happy with the last 3 games, but I don't think they're going to be fully convinced. That would be the only way. And then that's when you, like you said, make a splash move. But the only way you could do something like that is trading a day 3 pick for, honestly, like a Darius Slayton type. Someone who's, got maybe 2 years left on a rookie deal. I know Slayton only has 1. 2 years left on a rookie deal. Very cheap, a guy who hit in the 5th round pick, but maybe that team has a little depth at that spot, or they're looking to gain as much draft capital as possible. So I think there's a much better chance the Giants are trading away a player than they are trading for somebody. Like, I really think that they are going to stay patient and stay the course. They're not going to, and again, like, yeah, listen, I was fantasizing about a playoff game the other day and thinking about like how much fun that would be. The dude talking Giants versus it means more than anything. When we were 6-10, like me and you were living and dying watching that Eagles Washington game, week 17 when Doug Peterson tanked. So it's not like I'm just like, oh, it's not about you don't win a Super Bowl, it doesn't matter. But I'm not changing the course.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm definitely more of a fan of adding draft assets rather than taking away. But if you win 2 out of your next 3, against these are not necessarily bad football teams that we're playing. The Ravens, Jaguars, and Seahawks. The Ravens obviously being the best of the 3. Those 3 teams, I think the Jaguars, a little bit better than the Seahawks. Seahawks defense is just really bad. But if you win 2 out of those next 3, I'm not going to lie, I would start to think about something. But what can this team do when they have no cap space and you really don't want to sacrifice any kind of pick? But that's why, like I said, Nelson Aguilar type player, obviously without the contract, it's tough to find. So
yeah, no
DB. I'm not like Jerome Henderson. They can run out there with Fabian Moreau, Nick McLeod, Justin Lane against Aaron Rodgers and kind of be fine. I know the Green Bay Packers don't have great wide receivers, but I trust Jerome Henderson and Wink Martindale in the secondary, kind of whoever's out there, that they'll be all right. So no DB. The only addition that I would be kind of open to is wide receiver, one that doesn't sacrifice future assets. Tough to find.
All right,
ready for next question? All right. Zach at _ZTFB. I really want to hear where you guys stand on Daniel Jones. I think you have made it clear enough in the past but has the recent success plus probable mid to late 2023 draft pick in the first round changed your mind in a contract year?
So we're at a third way of the season, so I think it's a good time to talk about this because there's a good sample size, of the season so far, and obviously it's trending up with Daniel Jones these last 3 games. Here's what did we say on our player profile projection? Because we're kind of racking our brains of what can he do to get a 1-year deal, and one of the things we did say, Justin, was win games.
Yes,
it's as simple as that. Win games, and the draft position goes up. And if we're winning games, Daniel Jones is probably going to look pretty good, and he has looked good the last 3 games, even though the passing stats haven't really been there. We are still the 31st ranked passing offense. So obviously, you're not making a decision right now. But if he plays at this level and you aren't in a draft position, or you don't like one of these QBs, or you don't have the capital to trade up that you want, I'd be totally fine with a 1-year deal. I'd much rather that than Tyrod Taylor. But I for him to get a franchise tag, though, it would have to be a lot better than what we're seeing right now. The stats kind of do matter for it to get a franchise tag. But a cheap, hey, would you rather stay with us for 1 year or go test free agency? That type of deal, I would be willing to. And then we could talk about his just play overall through this season. But to be here next year, I think that path is, 1, you win games, continue to win games, and stay healthy and kind of play at what you're playing at now. To just get a cheapo 1-year deal.
Yeah, for Daniel Jones, for me to say that Daniel Jones is getting to the path of being the answer at quarterback, got to get a little bit better with conventional passing when it's not relying on play action or play action rollouts. I mean, the splits and the discrepancy of the yards per attempt in play action versus non-play action. This is always just a big split anyway in the NFL, but I need the non-conventional passing, the regular drop back passing to be a little bit better. And we saw that start to happen against Green Bay, but play action and the staff setting him up for success, it's really, really helped. And I don't want to necessarily poo-poo on Daniel Jones, but when we're talking about making a big decision like a $30 million franchise tag or a multi-year extension, you have to get tough on Daniel Jones. Right now, Bobby, we're 4-1. I did not in any world expect that the Giants would get off to this hot of a start and that we would be here. I also didn't expect that we would be 4-1 and the Giants aren't throwing the ball tremendously well. I think they're throwing the ball better than maybe people give them credit for, at least on an EPA basis. But their running offense and Saquon Barkley is the majority of their offense right now. I expected it to be opposite. I expected if the Giants are going to be 4-1, it's going to be Brian Daboll, Mike Kafka really airing it out, and Kadarius Toney's out here. Kenny Galladay's having a somewhat of a comeback year. Wandale and Shep are operating well, but none of those guys have literally seen the field at all this year. Literally our top 4 wide receivers. So I'm enjoying it right now. I'm enjoying being 4-1. I'm enjoying that Daniel Jones is playing well, and the fact that we are, just a little bit more than a quarter into the season. So much can happen. The second that Daniel Jones maybe misses a game, what were we thinking when he went down with that ankle injury and he misses 1 game? How much of this Daniel Jones contract extension is different if he misses 1 game from that ankle injury? He didn't, but when it comes to week 10, week 11, week 12, the times in which he usually gets hurt and starts to miss games, the conversation may change and it may sway depending on if he can play 17 games. He's doing it so far, but right now I'm enjoying the ride. So much shit is going to happen down the road, and I'm going to kind of wait for it then.
Yeah, obviously with Daniel Jones, it's a cop-out answer, but it's we got to see the rest of the season. But the thing with Daniel Jones is always being consistent. The first 2 games, I don't care what anybody says, he was bad. He missed throws. There was throws that are there that he didn't pull the trigger at, and he looked uncomfortable. Now, we talked about it. Hey, if you win and you don't play well, and then you start to play well, those games will be forgotten a little bit. I guess in the fan base eyes and the coaching staff and GM, not as much. But these last 3 games, he has played well. The stats haven't been great, but with considering the O-line issues, the wide receiver issues, and how much he's added on the ground game, like the Chicago game, he added so much on the ground. Like it's been trending up, but we need to stay consistent. After 4 weeks last year, we were way higher on Daniel Jones. You had the Washington game, you had the Saints game, and then
because he was doing it on his own. I mean, that's really what it was, Bobby. He was doing it on his own, where I think these last couple weeks, starting with the Dallas game and then heading into now, and this isn't a knock on Daniel Jones, because we're winning games and he's been a huge part of it, especially against Green Bay. But I can't deny that running the play action, these play action rollouts, it's helping the quarterback. It's part of the game. Play action is a legal form of cheating in the NFL, but it's helping the quarterback versus the first 2 weeks. I think they wanted to run a little bit more of a conventional offense, and Daniel Jones was struggling with that a little bit.
Well, here's what I'll say to that, though, is we still have bad offensive line play. We still have bad wide receivers. And because he was put in the worst offensive play calling system in the NFL the last 2 years, I'm not going to apologize for him being in a functioning scheme now. This is what
right.
QBs should have. This is a functioning scheme with the talent they have. This isn't like
right.
This isn't like we have, the Dallas Cowboys, Ross, like an awesome roster, awesome play calling, kind of like, Jared Goff with the Rams kind of type.
But I'm with you though. But when it comes to the difference between giving him a $30 million deal versus seeing if you can work out a 1-year deal or a 2-year, you have to get kind of nitpicky though. You have to.
Oh, I agree. Like, the only way he could get a franchise tag for me would to be amazing the rest of the year. Not like he's been good. It have to be amazing. If he plays good the rest of the year, that's when you talk about like a 1-year deal. But there's nothing that he could do to give him a multi-year deal though. There's nothing. You got to put together good back-to-back years for me to be in that conversation. And also, he's in year 4, so there's nothing that he could do for me to earn a multi-year deal. The highest he could get would be the franchise tag, where if he just started playing like almost at an MVP level the rest of the year, which I don't see happening with this.
And you got to play 17 games too, right? Are you with me on that?
Yeah. But again, the main thing though for him to win games, play yourself out of a draft spot where they're looking at a QB they like. So
yeah,
and I'm not looking at the QB class or anything. Like, I'll do all that stuff when the season's over. But so the last 3 games he's played well. The first 2 games were bad, so I'm happy with how he's played the last 3 games, trending up in a new scheme.
There you go.
Keep it consistent. Next question.
There you go. Next question. Can I talk about something first?
Sure.
This episode is sponsored by AG1 Athletic Greens. That's right, they're back. I started taking AG1 because I wanted better gut health. I wanted a positive way, a productive way to start out my day, to boost my immune system. I don't like taking all these vitamins and all these pills, and you got to do this, you got to take this many times, and I don't care. I don't like it. Athletic Greens is simple because it is just 1 scoop in a cup, a glass of water every single day. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting good. It costs you less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/giants. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/giants to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. You'll be glad you did.
You'll be glad you did. Next question.
Next question is coming from NYG fan in Charlotte at CLT_NY. Research Rick. Who's more likely to be hired as a head coach in 2023, Mike Kafka or Wink Martindale? And then there's a part 2 to the question as well.
To me, I would say Wink Martindale, 1, because he has a track record of being a coordinator and being a great coordinator for the Ravens, coaching up number 1 defenses. I also think Wink and his defensive staff are coaching up players to be better, not just running scheme stuff. Like, a lot of times they're just running cover 3, cover 1. Like it's not the most insane. They're not running like these insane stuff all games. They're doing it on the important downs, and that's where like the cover zero look stuff. But I think a lot they're just coaching up players to be better, and I think that's a huge part of being a head coach and finding guys staff wise. Where I think Kafka has done a good job scheming up stuff, but what players do we think that are like, man, this coaching staff is getting the most out of this player? Like, it's nobody on the offensive line, that's for sure. The tight ends, they're getting stuff out of them. The receivers have been
Richie James, maybe.
Well, even Richie James hasn't like teams have figured out to just kind of bump him up. Obviously the quarterback, but the quarterback's mostly on scheme stuff.
I think they are getting the most out of David Sills. And
I guess.
I guess that's more of a reflection on David Sills.
So I would say Wink, and I think Wink commands a room better, and that does matter. Where Kafka maybe a little nerdy. So I would say Wink, but I don't think either one of them would get hired. One, because defensive coordinators are just so hard for them to get a job, and then also Kafka has it's Brian Dable's team thing part on him too.
It's also it's only his first year as a play caller too.
That's the big thing.
He's super young. So definitely not Mike Kafka now. I'm surprised I'm worried about Wink leaving. I mean, it depends how this year goes, but the fact that you had on a national stage, Wink Martindale schooling Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers giving props in their post-game pressers to Wink Martindale, I mean, that stuff gets noticed, and especially when it's on like a national scale, a nationally televised game like last Sunday. And Wink Martindale has gotten interviews for head coaching jobs before.
2020, he was my number one choice to be head coach for the Giants.
Yeah, he interviewed for the Giants job. He was your number one choice. And I even think, even in previous years or even future years after that, I don't think he did not get a head coaching job after he got fired from Baltimore. But, yeah, he's gotten him in the past. So that's actually a worry of mine this offseason, just because of how much in the national conversation the Giants are now that we may actually lose Wink Martindale.
But as defensive coordinators, it's so hard to get a head coach job.
Somebody will do it, though.
And Wink is also like the, kind of growly old man where, I think defensive coordinators, the owners and GMs kind of fall from are like the kid genius types, the Brandon Staley types, even though Brandon Staley hasn't been a good head coach. So I would say Wink. I think there's no shot Kafka would get a head coaching job this offseason.
Not yet.
But if I was making a bet of who gets a head coaching job first in their career, like I think that gets a little more interesting. Also, the Giants' offense is still like middle of the pack. Like we're not like a top 5 to 10 offense either.
No, and at least I like looking at DVOA and EPA and stuff like that. The Giants' defense is not good in those categories either, but they're doing a good job stopping teams on third downs, and that's the money down. I feel like because of how bad the Giants are on early downs, it's really influencing like DVOA and EPA, but how good they are on third down, that's what matters the most. So, and then there's a part 2 to this question. I kind of want to get your thoughts on it. So who's more likely to be hired as a defensive coordinator first? Drew Wilkins, who's the outside linebackers coach, or Jerome Henderson?
If another team's coming knocking, I would say Jerome Henderson. I really like Jerome Henderson. I think he, watch his interviews and, you don't want to judge a guy just on interviews, but it's like, okay, this guy gets it. And now he's been in 2 different schemes with the Giants, a man scheme and a zone scheme, and he's gotten the best out of his corners. And at times where there has been some bad corners in this group, and Isaac Yadam, Ryan, now we're just playing bad, playing bad corners at times and getting the most out of them. And he coaches the safeties as well. Some teams have like a safety coach and a corner coach. He's gotten the most out of them. But if Wink Martindale were to leave, I would say Drew Wilkins, because Drew Wilkins is like Wink Martindale's right-hand man. Like he's been molded in the image of Wink Martindale.
I feel like it should be Jerome Henderson, but I think it's going to be Drew Wilkins because he's Wink Martindale's right-hand man. Where I really think this is such like a relationship business, and I feel like this is just a professional world anyway. It's not what you know, it's who you know. So the fact that Drew Wilkins is so close to Wink and Wink can vouch for him, and hey, Wink Martindale's going to get a call from whatever team's looking for a DC, whatever head coach is looking for a staff. Hey, do you know who's your guy? Who's a guy that would be good for this job? And I think Wink would say Drew Wilkins. Even though I think Jerome Henderson may deserve it more. I think he definitely deserves it more.
Yeah, I would take Jerome Henderson over Drew. And I also am not as... We've had 3 years of Jerome Henderson. I've gotten to know him from the outside looking in. And he was one of the few coaches that was retained by the new staff. So, could set a good impression. He's had success in other stops too. I also, I don't have a great idea of Drew Wilkins totally yet, besides that Wink Martindale just loves the guy.
I don't think this season is what it is right now without Jerome Henderson. The worries that we had about Wink Martindale, they are maybe coming true without Jerome Henderson.
Yeah, that could be true.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, that's my theory. Just on, we saw Patrick Graham and his staff, with Jerome Henderson being included, they were able to adjust with whatever was thrown their way personnel-wise, especially in the secondary. And now Wink Martindale is doing the same thing. What's the one constant? Jerome Henderson. And
also,
yeah.
Sorry.
No.
Well, I was talking with Sanji, our Raiders guy, about Pat Graham, and he's like, I like what he's doing. It's just guys are getting beat in one-on-one situations, and it's maybe that could hold some credence to that.
There you go.
All right, next question.
Jesse Semino. Which currently injured player is going to make the biggest impact when they return, and how?
This is a fun question. Am I allowed to say Kadarius Toney?
You're allowed to, but he doesn't exist in my brain.
I feel like the answer is Kadarius Toney. He can change the offense if he's out there playing, but unlike the other guys who are injured, it's okay, when Kadarius Toney comes back, he'll probably be gone a week later after that.
Yeah, he'll change the Seahawk game for sure.
Yeah, and then he'll be done, the next game.
And then he'll have a bye week, to continue to rest, and then he'll miss the next game.
Well, so if we can play imaginary rules, all the guys who are injured who can come back this year, so not including a guy like Shep, are just healthy for the rest of the year, my answer would be Kadarius Toney. This offense needs somebody like that, someone who could just separate in so many different ways and be used in some of the the crossers and stuff. So my answer would be Kadarius Toney, even though I feel like it's not even a real answer with this.
No, and I think the real correct answer is Leonard Williams. So I almost even want to say besides Leonard Williams.
No, say Leonard Williams. I mean, what?
Well, no. I want to go because I think Leonard Williams is the obvious one here. Because you're just presuming that Kadarius Toney's going to be back. No,
it's not as obvious. You can make an argument that Azeez is their best edge rusher, and having that presence would help. I had to think about it, but Leonard Williams would be the answer. But the thing is, with Leonard Williams, he makes you so much better in the run game. It's not all on Dexter Lawrence. The defensive tackle group has basically been everything has been put on Dexter Lawrence, and he's done it.
Nick Williams has also played really well too.
He's had some flash plays, but down in, down out, he's not reliable.
I'm going to talk to you about one play. This was early in the game. First or second drive of the game, it's definitely first quarter. I actually did a pretty deep dive into the All-22 this week for the defensive All-22 specifically. Aaron Rodgers had a touchdown on the right-hand side to a tight end and then an outside wide receiver. He can either pick one of them, and I think it was going to be a touchdown. It was going to be a 20-plus yard play. Nick Williams pushes the pocket back, and it forces Aaron Rodgers to throw the ball to the left side, and either it's a check down or it's an incomplete pass, and then the Packers, I think, only get a field goal on that drive. So Nick Williams has made some really nice plays pushing the pocket back, and then there were some run stops that he had against the Packers. So at least against the Packers, he had a really, really good game.
My thing is, it's just he's not consistent enough in the run game for my liking. That's what I look for my defensive tackles. But he did have some impact plays.
For your third interior defensive lineman, though?
Yeah, but that's my point for saying Leonard Williams, though.
Well, yes,
Leonard Williams is such a huge plus in the run game. And you get, now we have Kayvon who can get some pressure on the outside, and now you have Dex and Leo going up the middle. I think it's Leonard Williams, but I do think you can make an argument that Azeez Ojulari is probably your best edge rusher. You get Azeez and Kayvon coming off the edge with Dex in the middle, and you can do some fun stuff with the defense. But I think because Leonard Williams is so good in the run game as well, that my answer is Leonard Williams.
So I wanted to approach this question saying besides Leonard Williams, because I think that is the very obvious answer. I think getting Shane Lemieux back at the level that we think he can play, that we saw in camp, that we saw in the 19 snaps against the Broncos in 2021, getting Shane Lemieux back at that kind of level, think of how much, forget the passing offense. Do you know how much better the run blocking side of things can get for the Giants? Andrew Thomas and Shane Lemieux next to each other? Think of how much better it can get.
Yeah, Shane Lemieux's just been so out of sight, out of mind for me since he's like, I don't know when he's coming back.
So I think it's Shane Lemieux. Like, I'm going to say besides Leonard Williams, I put Leonard Williams number 1, Shane Lemieux number 2. If he can get back, I put him number 2
over Aziz.
Yes, offense.
All right. Next question.
This is a fun name. Guy Garricolt at Cassius Connor. Where does Landon Collins fit on this team? 4 safety rotation is pretty set with Xavier McKinney, Julian Love, Dane Belton, and Justin Jefferson. Tate Crowder and Jalen Smith are playing well at linebacker. Is he just depth at both of those spots? So what's the role for Landon Collins?
I kind of agree with Guy. I don't know.
Is he going to be signed to the active roster?
Well, here's where it gets tricky is like we were like, oh, maybe they're not as happy with Tony Jefferson right now. Tony Jefferson was just assigned to the active roster.
Yeah. So
I don't see them cutting Tony Jefferson. Jalen Smith is a much better linebacker than what Landon Collins is, and Tony Jefferson is a much better like dime safety than what Landon Collins is. So I think he might just be depth. Like I don't see a path for like they might play him in spot like situations, give him some reps here and there, but I don't know. That's why I wasn't excited at all about the Landon Collins thing. He's really was an issue in Washington. Not just not living up to a 6-year, $84 million contract, but I just now if one of those guys gets injured, then you got yourself an answer. But I don't know. Maybe like I hope he proves me wrong. Like because at one point he was a really good player, but I don't know where the fit is for Landon Collins on this defense.
How many practice squad elevations do you get? I've asked you this 7 times this season. 3?
3.
There's 3 games into the bye. Stuff is going to happen before then. So I mean, I think as of now he may stay on the practice squad. I don't see them signing him to the 53. There's going to be some other decisions that they may have to make. I think as Rodarius Williams comes back from injury, there's going to be some defensive guys that come back from injury. So is there any other roster manipulation that needs to be made? I don't know. But here's where Landon Collins can be effective for you, and this is what I think he's just going to be. He's going to be a guy that's going to force negative plays, and they're going to let him rock and roll on third downs. They're going to put him in the box, and he's going to try and force negative plays. Simple answer. Even with his struggles in Washington, still a forced tackle for loss. And then even last year, I think he had like 3 sacks, which I think he also had like 3 sacks in 2016, which was his best year as a pro with the Giants. So he is still a guy that can force negative plays. And really, this Giants defense needs guys that can force negative plays in the backfield, whether it is tackles for loss in the run game or sacks. They need those guys.
Yeah, so my answer would be he plays over Tony Jefferson, but Tony Jefferson getting added to the 53-man roster kind of threw a wrench in it for me. Where before that happened, I was like, okay, that's where he'll play. But we'll see.
I just hate having him on the field, because I think it's going to be such a easy tell of when Landon Collins is on the field. I hope they're not going to ask him to drop back in the coverage. It'll be an easy tell of this guy is in the game for the sole purpose of getting in the backfield.
Yeah, but you can have him cover. You can have him be the robber, and like cover one areas, and also when you're sending pressure, you can ask him to cover a back because the ball's going to come out quickly. But you can never play him at like basically what Tony Jefferson has done, which is what I thought the role would be. But we'll see. But maybe they didn't expect Jalen Smith to play as well as he has, but. Yeah, I'm not very sure. I'm not sure. Next question.
He could also just stay on the practice squad too, right?
I guess, but that would be weird.
That'd be weird. Let's get weird. Giants are weird. Wes Locke at Westy Westicles. Wes plays a really good game. He knows the game. He knows the questions that are going to tickle Bobby's fanny, and this is the one that does it. Somebody who watches the O-line report, do you think the Giants will eventually allow Neal to set more vertically, or will they continue to force their concepts? A lot of talk about the coaching staff not forcing square pegs in round holes. How does this not apply with the O-line?
Here's the thing, is you could put Evan Neal in vertical sets, and I still think he'd have some issues, because his issues aren't just, the aggressive pass sets that Bobby Johnson runs. But I also do get a little frustrated when I hear like when we hired him, he's like, I don't do vertical sets. It's like, well, like, ever? You know? It's like, like Neal has the athleticism and the body size and the strength to be able to do that. And he did it at Alabama. And, you know, judging position coaches is tough because at the end of the day, it's the players, like, it's up to the players to be good or not. But, like, Glowinski hasn't been good. Feliciano's been bad. Bredesen had a couple decent games, but was really bad this past week. And then obviously Thomas. I don't care who his O-line coach is. He's going to be great. I don't know, man. It's not like the aggressive stuff is like helping the interior. Like it's like, I don't know. I just think Evan Neal belongs doing more vertical sets. Like, does it open him up to inside moves like it did Andrew Thomas? Absolutely. But like Andrew Thomas, it's also easier to cheat out of vertical sets, where aggressive sets, man, it just feels like he's trying to catch up with everything, and he's late to the party, and then is throwing his hands out of whack, and it's just, I don't know. He's and here's at the end of the day, he has rookie, like, it's up to Evan Neal, like, he has rookie struggles that he needs to get through, you know. So this isn't like a, will Evan Neal be good long term, or is he a bust, or moving the guard? This is not that conversation. It's just, I feel like he'd be better suited in vertical pass sets, but Bobby Johnson is just so against them.
And this was part of the worry with having Bobby Johnson as O-line coach, and our guys at Cover One who cover the Bills, and they do a really good job with it. You know, the one guy who they were kind of wary of, and the one guy that they were, you know, maybe even a little bit more okay with losing compared to Dable, compared to Shane, it was Bobby Johnson. They were like, this guy's a little stubborn. The Bills' O-line has underperformed in past years, and we're seeing it at least in the pass game right now with the Giants. Granted, they don't necessarily have the most awesome personnel. Feliciano's not a long-term answer. Ben Bredesen's not a long-term answer. Mark Glowinski, there's a reason why you signed him to a cheap, you know, basically what is a 2-year contract. So the personnel isn't there, but
I like what he's done in the run game, though. Like, I like, and they've run a mix of gap and zone, and that's hard to teach. And they've done a good job with that. So I don't want to, like, I think they've taught that really well. But I understand, like, the whole pass pro isn't passive thing, but it's just, I feel like letting Evan Neal do vertical sets would help him accumulate to the NFL a little better. And again, he's got the profile to be able to pull that stuff off. You know, this isn't just some, you know, Joe Blow.
And, you know, you mentioned the run game. The Giants' yards before contact, you know, rankings on Pro Football Reference, which I use that yards before contact metric as, hey, this is a little bit more of an evaluation of the offensive line. It's up there in the top 10 of the league. It's up there with some of the top rushing offenses in the NFL. It's not just Saquon Barkley that's carrying the offense on his back and carrying the running game. The offensive line is opening up some good holes for him, which is necessary for a running game to operate well. So if you change what Evan Neal does and Bobby Johnson stops being so stubborn, they allow him to do some more vertical sets. Can you just have Evan Neal doing his own thing, or do you need to change the rest of the 5 guys as well?
You can kind of have Evan Neal doing his own thing. The difference is you're setting more towards a man instead of, like, we're working together as a team. But again, it's not helping the interior offensive line, really.
No.
You know, Neal and Glowinski haven't been, like, it helps you not get stunted, which hasn't been a huge issue for them. But But part of that has been, like, guys have just been beating them around the corner. Like, Evan Neal has looked really bad. I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, hey, you're doing a podcast and they're coaching for a reason. But also, you know, with Colombo, there was very, like, they went. Well, with Colombo, it was just they the whole wrong way about trying to fix Thomas, and they were like trying to do all this stupid stuff with his hands. When it's like, dude, just fix his feet. Like, just tell him to cheat inside. So it's actually people compare it to Andrew Thomas. It's actually very different than what Andrew Thomas dealt with, and they're two different players as well, where Andrew Thomas is much more athletic than Evan Neal, where Thomas could cheat inside, and it's like, well, you can just wash guys around the corner, dude. Like, you had the NFL athleticism to pull that crap off, and then he just got better. He didn't have to cheat as he went on through his career and got better. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but I hope we can get some type of ascension for Evan Neal by the end of this year. I don't want to go into this offseason being like, well, hopefully we get a nice 2-year jump. Like, we got to get some ascension at some point, and we haven't gotten it.
Yeah, and especially, I really don't want to go into this offseason saying Evan Neal is much better suited at guard.
No, there's really not much anything he could do for me to say that this offseason. Yeah. Like, let him work at tackle. And I don't have a panic level with Evan Neal. Like, I'm really not stressed about Evan Neal. It's just I want it to get better sooner than later, like anybody would want to.
Yeah. Get out of your stance. I mean, we've been saying that since camp. I mean, he just doesn't. I mean, you talked about that in the O-line report this week. I mean, when you start getting out of your stance and timing the game better, getting used to the speed of the game, when he's more games in, and if he's still struggling with the same stuff, then I'll react a little bit more.
Yeah. So I'll say I'm not stressing Neal. It's just. Anyways, let's do the next question. We spent too much time on it. Actually, hold on. The NFL action is in full swing at DraftKings Sportsbook. The Giants don't have a swing tackle. An official sports betting partner of the NFL. We're talking touchdowns, big plays, Saquon Barkley, 2 big plays, and even bigger wins. New customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win and get $200 and free bets if they do. Wow. Check this out. In addition to the usual bets, everyone can boost their winnings with DraftKings stepped up same game parlays. You know what? Where they want to discuss matchups. You know what was super annoying last week on Thursday Night Football? When they're like, well, look at next week's game. Bears versus Washington. It was like, that's definitely a better game than Colts Broncos. Like, at least those teams are like bad in like an entertaining way, where the Colts and Broncos were the most boring types of bad. Like, I hate Matt Ryan. People who told me, like, oh, Matt Ryan's not washed. Like, I despise you for ever telling me Matt Ryan was not washed. And me being like, were my eyes wrong watching this cat? He sucks. Like, people were talking about Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson will end up figuring it out. Matt Ryan stinks. So bet against Matt Ryan. To make things even sweeter, you can throw down on stepped up same game parlays once per game day. All season long. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code JOHNBOY to get $200 in free bets if your team wins when you place a $5 bet on any football game. That's code JOHNBOY only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
You'll be glad you did.
You'll be glad you did.
Bobby, you talked about big plays. Saquon Barkley had 2 of them this last Sunday. Who was the other player that had a 20-plus yard play for the New York Football Giants?
Big play Slay.
And Jack Salzoni has a question on big play Slay. Darius Slayton had a good game last week. Do you think he plays a high snap percentage even if we have Galladay and Toney come back from injury?
Yeah, absolutely. I was kind of saying that before Slayton had this. I think we talked about it on the Mailbag pod last week. Like, how can you get some more drop back offense? It was like, play Slayton. Like, speed is respected, So Galladay is kind of like, I don't like. If Galladay's healthy, I want him out there over Sills probably, but I definitely don't want him over Slayton, and that's not reacting to this game. So I think he needs to be your number one, like your X receiver. He's had experience doing it. Toney, you can't trust if he were to come back, and you could just have Toney as the 2. Best receiving game output all year. This past game, and he only played like 53% of the snaps. Like Marcus Johnson led that wide receivers in snaps, which was pretty interesting. And he can beat you in multiple ways. If you play him like the Bears played him, he can beat you vertically, and he did that twice. If you play him like the Packers play him, you can beat you in crossers. So I think Darius Slayton's a better than people give him credit for. It's just the drops were such a huge issue. Like, I think NFL fans overreact to drops at times. They weren't overreacting to Darius Slayton's last year. Like, it was a huge issue. But yeah, I think Slayton should be playing the rest of the year as the number 1 wide receiver, no matter who comes back.
Darius Slayton has played 90 snaps. He has 6 first downs on 7 catches. Kenny Golladay has played 99 snaps. He has 2 catches and 1 first down. You want to talk about receivers that
also created that pass interference versus the Bears too.
Yeah, you want to talk about receivers that don't exist on my brain? Kadarius Toney and Kenny Golladay are 2 receivers that don't exist on my brain.
Yep.
So Darius Slayton should be playing over Kenny Golladay when he's healthy. Yeah.
All right, next question.
Who's more on the shit list? Kadarius Toney or Darius Slayton? On the in this Giants coaching staff's eyes.
Oh, Toney. They're getting frustrated with Toney.
Is he?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you because there was more of an outward. Well, I guess Toney's a former first-round pick and has multiple years left on his deal versus Slayton's on a contract year. Because there was we're done with.
They're getting frustrated with Toney. This injury stuff is really starting to bother them. Plus, Toney's probably not the easiest guy in the world.
They wanted to get rid of Slayton.
Oh, yeah. But that was... Well, we talked about it. It's like you don't get rid of Slayton for nothing because...
No, I know that. I know. I'm just saying, this coaching staff right now is playing guys... I guess Slayton's the only exception. They're playing Darius Slayton in spite of them not wanting to play Darius Slayton. They are. They don't want to play him.
That's true. But I bet you that Toney is more on their bad side than Slayton. Slayton is just... Slayton's going to show up to work and have a good attitude about stuff. And he's also not unbelievably injury prone either.
No, he rarely has been injured in his career.
Ron Swanson played through it when he was in 2020.
Yeah, that was our big conspiracy. Ron Swanson at Ronnie Swanson 69. Say Nick Gates starts to come back into form. Who on the interior are you replacing? P.S. Sugma. Really rude.
Oh, that's Ronnie Swanson for you. He's a rude person. Obviously, for me, it's obviously center. One, we've seen Nick Gates just be a good center in the NFL. And John Feliciano, one, isn't good. He's been consistently bad. And he's the only true stopgap. Glowinski's going to be here for another year. At left guard, they got a Zudu back there, So, to me, it'd be center. So, but here, do you agree or disagree with that?
Part of me wants to get crazy and say Glowinski just because he's been disappointing, but that's not the smart thing to do. Center would be the smart thing to do, but I don't think they'll do it. That's what I would do. I think that they would keep him on the bench.
Me too. Here's if he's anywhere near what he was in 2020, he should be the starter at center. Get him up to speed on the calls and stuff. Start him at center. I hate saying this because Nick Gates is our guy. Are you worried? Do you have I don't know what he's going to be after missing over a year of football?
How many days?
I don't know if he's going to be good when he comes back.
Does he have 14 days left until they have to make a decision?
Yes.
I don't think he's going to see the field.
I lean not to, but he's out there practicing and moving, and I don't know. I'm rooting for that guy like crazy, man.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I really am.
Yes.
The thing is it's just a huge question mark, and it's really to revisit a little bit. It really does suck. You find an undrafted free agent hit. 2019, the guy plays, and he played your best tackle all year. Better than Nate Solder, better than Mike Remmers, but you didn't play him over him. You put him at guard. He played really good at guard. And then we bang on the table we got to find a spot for this guy to start. The O-line's not good enough to have this guy on the bench. He comes in at center and was a good center, a good NFL center. And then that freaking leg crap happens, dude. I don't know. So it's a big question mark, but I'm getting excited and nervous about what's happening with Nick Gates.
There's more to center than just showing up and snapping the ball and blocking. There's the whole pass protection thing, the chemistry with the rest of the offensive line, and John Feliciano has a whole summer with this O-line, plus his knowledge of the Dable system and Bobby Johnson's system to begin with anyway. So that Nick Gates has that going against him as well, not just his own health.
Yeah, and they brought Feliciano over to be the center, and there's a relationship there with Bobby Johnson. So I don't see him. I don't see him just coming, like, if he is activated, I don't see them being like, all right, you're the starter at this position anymore. No, I think the only way
he has a better chance of guard. He has a better chance of guard than center, in my opinion, because they like Feliciano.
Yeah, but I don't see that happening. I think it has to be injury, and then next year is the play to see what the guy is.
Yeah, I just hope he stays on the team.
Yes, please bring him back on whatever deal next year, please. All right, last question.
RJ at Inshane We Trust. The yes is a 5. I can't really think of anything to ask. So how y'all doing? How y'all doing,
Justin? We haven't gotten a lot of these type of questions in mailbag season this year.
No. I'm doing good, man. Really trying to push the JM football stuff and the John Boy Media football stuff. So I watched Seattle's defense be mind-bogglingly bad today. I watched Taysom Hill every time he touched the ball, got a first down, and did something extremely productive, including throwing the ball. I watched Tyreek Woolen, who I loved. Remember how I loved Tyreek Woolen? And you were like, I don't know, he's a little raw. Has 3 interceptions in his last 3 games. One of them goes for a pick 6, 10 completions on 20 targets. And that Seahawks defense is garbage. Tyreek Woolen is like up there right now with like defensive rookie of the year odds. Like he's up there. I think he should get it. If the season ended today, he'd get it over Sauce Gardner. So that was my day today. Nick Chubb had an amazing run. What other games did I watch and film? That's all that I can remember right now. How are you?
I'm good, man. It's this stuff is a lot more fun when the Giants are winning.
Yes. No, for sure.
Like, at the end of last year, it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I mean, we basically became just like a rant show. Like we almost became sports radio. Like
I hated it, man. I hated it because there was no way to separate yourself.
The O-line reports were just like, I'm just going to do Andrew Thomas.
We're big believers, especially, myself and Bobby. This is why I think we get along. We do good stuff. We're big believers in how do we separate ourselves? Like, what are we going to do? What are we going to produce? What are we going to create that kind of separates ourselves from the pack? And when the Giants are as bad as they were, especially towards the latter part of last year, like, the only thing that worked is just complaining about Mara, Gettleman, and Judge. That's the only, and Jones and everything.
Which anybody can do, too.
Which anybody can do. So that was the frustrating part about last year, just from a content perspective. Obviously, the Giants sucking was bad. But this is just so much fun, man. I'm glad the Giants are back, and it makes everything that we do more fun and more worth it.
Yeah, it's been good. I'm excited to go to this Jaguars game.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. I'm excited that I'm going to be like the only one making videos on social media that day, too.
Maybe I was thinking about getting someone at John Boy Media to run my account to do the videos on that day.
Just tweet out Justin Pennick will be making videos, so go give him a follow. How about that?
I will.
Give your co-host a little bump.
I will. I was just kidding. But I was actually thinking about that actual scenario. It's like, if we make the playoffs, we're going to be live streaming for the playoff game.
Yeah, are you going to come up here?
Yeah. If we make the playoffs, I'm definitely coming up there for that.
If there's a home playoff game, which this won't have, if there's a home playoff game, will we go? No, we have to live stream it. That's going to be tough for me.
Yeah.
Do I sell my tickets?
I don't know. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, but it's starting to hit me like we've had our moments of like talking Giants history, and it's like really one of the biggest things we can do is talk about the Giants in the playoffs, and we haven't gotten that opportunity yet. Because part of me is like, what bridges do we have to cross? Like, I want to interview a coach next offseason, like a position coach or whoever. So we'll see. I also want to start doing some, like, Cover One inspired me that maybe with some of our player interviews going forward, we asked them if they could do like a 5-minute film breakdown with us too, that we could put separate out from the podcast.
All right.
Like Antonio, Andrew Thomas. Could have been like Andrew Thomas we did in person, so it'd be a little different, but just put it on StreamYard and like, hey, what's 5 plays you want to talk about your process in? All right, that's an episode. We just shared you all our goals for the offseason of Talking Giants. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you enjoyed everything. We'll be back on Friday for a preview pod. A lot of revenge games this week, so I'm very excited about that. I'm a little annoyed that people already tweeted out the Wink Martindale revenge game stuff, but,
Well, like that's inevitable.
Yeah. But part of me is like, revenge games are us now. We own revenge games.
Justin Ellis. Jihad Ward. Can we say what happened with Jihad Ward?
Yeah, can we say that? So at first, I saw someone say that Jihad Ward blocked him, so I went to go look at Jihad Ward's Twitter, and he blocked me. And then I posted it on our Patreon account, and we had like 20 people reply that they're blocked, and then you were blocked, and the Talking Giants account is blocked, and we're blocked on Instagram. I think he must have done like some type of like mass blocking. Like I know there's like a mass, like a nuking blocking thing, but he blocked like people who like hadn't tweeted about him. Like I don't think they liked to tweet or I don't know what. And even though I wasn't like the most negative thing I've tweeted about Jihad Ward was like he's last in pass rush win rate in the NFL.
I've tweeted out that he's the leader of the edge rushers. No, but I mean I kind of respect. I don't give a damn if you block us, but I was just like, this is weird. I think that's fine. Like I respect when a player does that because if for their own mental health and for their own sanity, if they need to block out people that they know like will get attention, if we tweet out just Jihad Ward with no context and that name, it will get likes because that's just the following.
But he blocked everybody like on our
associated, yeah.
So
which I think it's fine.
I want to talk to him. I'm like, what happened, man? We'll see. But Jihad Ward's been really good versus the run this year. Been impressed with him. He's been a great edge setter. And he's done a bunch of little things right. There's
Leader
a reason why Wink Martindale likes him so much. All right, we appreciate you guys. We'll be back on Friday with the preview pod. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.